Watching News at Prime, let's bring you this now. Acting Police Minister Firoz Cachalia says he agrees with Bheki Cele's testimony that the dissolution of the political killings task team was political in nature. He made the comments at Parliament's ad hoc committee, which is looking into allegations of political interference in the police. Newzroom Afrika's Zoleka Qodashe has been watching developments for us there throughout the day. She joins us now for a quick summation of what we've heard. Zoleka, good evening to you. And the minister, the acting minister of police, I suppose he did expect a question about whether or not his appointment is constitutional from members of parliament who possibly were baying for his blood.
That's correct, Xoli, and you'll remember that this is currently the subject of litigation before the Gauteng High Court in Pretoria. You'll remember that the Umkhonto weSizwe Party has previously challenged his appointment, along with several other decisions that were made by the president in relation to the SAPS. One, it was the placement of Senzo Mchunu, the minister, on leave of absence, and the other one was the placement or the appointment of Firoz Cachalia as the acting police minister, and the third was the establishment of the Commission of Inquiry that's investigating allegations of criminal infiltration and political interference in the criminal justice system. Now, you'll remember that Firoz Cachalia was appointed in terms of Section 91, subsection 3C of the Constitution that empowers the President to appoint no more than 2 ministers from outside the National Assembly. That essentially would have made the minister a minister without portfolio. And then after that, the President invoked Section 98 of the Constitution, which allows him to give the functions of a minister that is not fulfilling their functions or cannot fulfill their functions or is absent to another cabinet minister. And so that is how the process unfolded. And that is why we even saw the Minister of Minerals and Petroleum Resources also assuming the position of Police Minister during that interim period before Firoz Cachalia, Professor Firoz Cachalia, assumed the position on the 1st of August. That is how the Constitution stipulates for it to happen, or envisages that process happens. And so that particular issue was thrust before the ad hoc committee as members of parliament sought to establish really whether Professor Firoz Cachalia was an acting police minister or whether he was instead a minister. But you'll remember that he, at the moment, is the only one that has been delegated by the president in terms of that appointment to exercise any executive authority over the Ministry of Police. And so the question now is, where does that place Minister Senzo Mchunu? That's a question that has been asked by the lawmakers today, as they also seek to get clarity on these various positions and legal questions. And so the minister then clarifying that he is the only one that has the executive authority at the moment. Let's take a listen.
So essentially, from what we understood and what the president of the country told us is that you are the one without a ministry because Minister Senzo has one. We don't know if he's suspended because you keep saying he's suspended. We are told that he's on leave, but essentially he's the minister right now for the Minister of Police who's on special leave. You were appointed without a ministry or even responsibilities for, and now you're acting. Because when ministers act, they get executive power. So when Minister Gwede was acting as the police minister, from what we understood, he had executive powers to carry out his duties. I don't know if there was a question in there, but I was just wanting to... I'm going to be told I'm ranting here. Thank you, Chair, but maybe the Prof wants to respond because I'm scared. I don't know if I must say acting or minister.
No, I don't mind what I'm called, so don't worry about it. I don't think much significance attaches to the label. So let me just clarify. I exercise executive authority with respect to this portfolio. That's presumably why I'm here today. I sit in the cabinet. I have all the powers of a minister exercising executive authority that are set out in the Constitution.
Now, Xoli, the reason why there were questions around the position of Minister Senzo Mchunu is essentially that the MPs were arguing that he cannot be a minister without a portfolio because he hasn't been appointed as such in terms of the same provision that Professor Firoz Cachalia was appointed in terms of Section 91, subsection 3C of the Constitution. They also spoke about or asked the minister what his take was in relation to the powers and functions of the minister in relation to the disbandment of the political killings task team, as well as the interministerial committee that was established by President Cyril Ramaphosa in 2018. Now, he is in agreement with one of his predecessors, that's Bheki Cele, who essentially said that this was a political decision and arose from that political intervention when it was announced and established by the president. But the president also announced and established the interministerial committee. Now, there were previous questions around why the minister did not consult. You remember that when he appeared before the ad hoc committee, he said there was no legal obligation for him to actually consult with anyone in that regard, and also took a unilateral decision for the disbandment of the PKTT when he issued that directive on the 31st of December last year. And so the minister, Firoz Cachalia, Professor Firoz Cachalia, is in disagreement to some extent with the manner in which the minister, that's Senzo Mchunu, exercised his authority, but also in the manner in which he actually issued the directive for the disbandment of the PKTT. Remember that consultation is one of the hallmarks for fair, procedurally fair, as well as sound legal decisions in the exercise of power by an organ of state. And so that is what the minister now was saying, that essentially the minister that's been placed on leave of absence should have consulted not only with the various role players, but also with those who are in the IMC. You remember that the IMC does not just constitute of the SAPS, but also other ministries, particularly the Minister of Justice, who would be responsible for the deployment of prosecutors in that regard, to also form part of the PKT team. Let's take a listen to what the Minister, Professor Firoz Cachalia, had to say in that regard.
Now, in this case, that committee did not meet. It's not clear that it continued to exist. And he did consult with the ministers that were in those portfolios. And so to that extent, and with all due respect to my predecessor, I think to take that decision without consulting the president, without engaging those ministers, and without reaching an agreement with the national commissioner, at least that's what it appears to be the case, doesn't seem to me to have been the right way to make a decision of such importance.
If you're implying that it was the wrong way to make a decision of such importance,
Yeah.
does that amount to you saying that it was political interference?
I would say it was, if on my reasoning, it was an unwise decision.
Now, the minister was also asked about the IDEC, which essentially was established in 2019 as a result of those recommendations by the Commission of Inquiry that was investigating allegations of state capture, otherwise known as the Zondo Commission. And so what he had said in relation to that is that it did raise questions why IDEC effected an arrest against PKTT project leader, as well as head of crime intelligence, Dumisani Khumalo, in the way in which it did, and also the reasons behind that particular arrest at the OR Tambo International Airport around June this year. And so what the central issue was here, you remember that when Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi appeared before the ad hoc committee in October, He essentially told the committee that the reason why there was an arrest against the head of crime intelligence was to ensure that the reforms within crime intelligence do not take place. And so he says this was the motivating factor that behind that arrest, also saying that a member of parliament talking about the MK party member, that's Brian Molefe, who was not arrested in the manner in which, or accosted in the manner in which Dumisani Khumalo was, despite the fact that he was facing serious charges relating to 90 million rand in relation to ESCOM. And so he also questioned the mandate of IDAC. You'll remember that Bheki Cele also asked the question that if you have all these various entities that have an oversight body, he was asking the question, who oversees the work of IDAC? And so the minister also echoing some of those sentiments, saying that essentially there must be an account of why IDAC acted in the manner that it did in relation to Dumisani Khumalo. Let's take a listen.
And I don't know, in your extensive experience, and I mean, if people have done wrong, okay, consequences must follow, but in your extensive experience, have you come across somebody who would have been arrested, you know, and then there's issues of fraud and what relating to employment irregularities?
You know, I have the same question, but I think that it wouldn't be correct for me to answer that question. I look forward actually to IDAC's appearance before the committee so that they will take the opportunity to clarify this matter, because I do know what General Masamola's view is, and I would say that because the matter does apparently relate to a decision to appoint a particular person in a particular position, which usually doesn't lead to suspicions of criminality. So they will have to definitely clarify why they have charged General Khumalo and why they arrested him.